What do you get when you have a Knight Templar and a group trying to defend a castle against King John? Blood. Lots and lots of blood. Hey everybody, what's going on? Today we are going to be talking about a medieval movie that I really like, that I've watched a few times over the years, and I still really appreciate it. I know not everybody likes this movie, but I really dig it. Today we're going to be talking about 2011's Ironclad, starring James Purefoy, Paul Giamatti, Brian Cox, Charles Dance, and Kate Mara. I will warn you there might be some minor spoilers in this review. But if you like medieval movies, this is one that I really enjoy, as I said before. And if you can get your hands on it, it is hard to find. I had to buy it again to watch it, because I couldn't even find a place to rent this movie. If you get a chance to watch it, check it out. I enjoy it for its simplicity. I'll say that, because the most of the movie takes place in one area, and it works really well for this. What you get with this movie is you have the beginning of the movie where King John is forced to sign the Magna Carta, and it says, okay, he signed the Magna Carta, but what they didn't talk about is what he did after. What he does is he just starts decimating the land. And you have some of the people, especially Brian Cox's character, one of the barons that had him sign the Magna Carta. He gathers up a group of men after finding out what King John is doing. He gathers up a group of men and goes to defend the castle that is where the big supply lines and everything for King John comes through. And they're trying to get the French to come help them stop King John. The reason this happens is you have James Purefoy's character, Thomas, is a Knight Templar. Him and his group are traveling, and as they're traveling, they run into King John. King John cuts out the tongue of their master and kills every other one. There's like 2 or 3 others, kills all the other ones, while Thomas gets out of there with his master, but his master dies. He takes the information to the Archbishop. The Archbishop says, well, the Pope is trying to be okay with... The Pope is for King John, but we're going to stand against him, and I'll see if I can get the French to come help. The Archbishop, played by Charles Dance, by the way. So they go to this castle, and they have to defend it from King John and his army. So you have this ragtag group of the Baron and some of his former group, where you have the arrow marksman, you have the warrior, and they do have some personality. So don't get me wrong there. The characters do have a little bit of history, and they do talk about it. But he gets his ragtag group together to fight with Thomas to defend this castle. So you have like 20-30 men total trying to defend this castle against like a large part of King John's army, including King John, who's there. And that's the basic setup of the movie. But the ruler of the castle is married to Kate Mara's character, but it was an arranged marriage. So that it's like a loveless marriage. And of course that leads to a love story between Kate Mara and James Purefoy's characters, which of course he... trying to be pious is, trying to, she's really laying it on thick, trying to get with him, and he's just kind of like, we can't do this. So that's also one of the parts of the story. Plus you have the story, and this actually becomes important. You have the story of Guy. He's Guy the Squire, and he is kind of your everyman. He's kind of the character that would be us, right? It's our eyes. He's seeing, war for the first time, and he has to kill somebody for the first time, and we see how it changes him over the length of the movie. So he's kind of our the one that represents us is really the best way to put it. What I like about this movie, first of all, the acting is really good. Even by the actors I don't know, I liked all the characters. When they're introducing us to the Baron's men, we get introduced to most of them in creative ways. And then they even bring on an extra guy because they need an extra hand, so they pay for someone to just be freed from being tortured. And he ends up being very valuable. And after a while, you want to see these guys succeed, but after a while, things don't go so well for our characters. And then, as bad things start to happen, you things happen to these characters, and you just it makes you sad because you are connected to them. But I like the acting in this. James Purefoy is great. He was also the lead in Solomon Kane. I haven't seen that movie in a long time, but I do really remember enjoying it when it came out. And I think the reason I watched Solomon Kane is because I watched this, if I'm not mistaken. But when you got or actors like Brian Cox and Charles Dance, Kate Mara, and Paul Giamatti, by the way, when you got actors like that behind these characters, it works really well. Paul Giamatti, he is almost perfect as King John because, as we know, King John, he was ruthless but cowardly, and that's exactly how Paul Giamatti plays this part. It's like, when he's got his men behind him, he's real tough, but when things aren't going his way, you can see his weakness, and I really dug that. Brian Cox, of course, is always awesome, and it almost seems just a lot like Brian Cox playing Brian Cox in some ways in this, because his character does throw out some snide remarks and things like that. He has that Brian Cox humor. If you've seen Brian Cox, throw out his humor, it's really the same. But he's also has a lot of serious stuff in this too, and it works really well. Kate Mara's solid in this, and in some ways, she's a little too, she's just driven by, her wanting Thomas. But after a while, their friendship / relationship does make sense. Charles Dance, he's not in it much, but of course he's Charles Dance and he's awesome. So he's the Archbishop, and of course he's great in the movie. So you have, and then of course James Purefoy, again, I mentioned he was great. So, you have a good character base, and again, a lot of the actors I didn't know, they're great too. So the performances really drive this movie. But another thing that drives this movie is its simplicity, because you have these characters stuck at this castle, and that's where the majority of the movie takes place. You would think that you would get tired of being at this location, but them defending this location becomes like the plot of the movie. So you're really wanting to see what they do, what innovations they have to come up with to defend the castle, to defend against the innovations of the king. You have, it's just, they keep it interesting on what they have to do to keep this castle standing. Lastly, let's talk about what else drives this movie. The violence. This movie is brutal. There is just all sorts of hack and slash going on. There's really no way to describe it. There's a lot of destruction, a lot of broken bones and blood, and it's just extremely brutal, and I love every minute of it. It's just, when I imagine, like when I played D&D, it's what you imagine what would happen if you would, smash someone with this massive two-handed sword. Our main character has this big two-handed, holy-looking sword, right? And man, he hacks a few people pretty bad. The big battle at the end, because of course you have to have you have your bad guy, but then he has his captain, right? Well, you have Captain Tiberius, who carries this massive axe, and so Thomas and Tiberius go at the end, of course, and it gets pretty bloody. And it worked for me. The violence in this is one of the big sells of the movie. But yeah, there's really not much more to say about this one. If you can get your hands on it, it's well worth watching. The story, the love story is a little weak, but it works. But the main story of them doing what they have to do to defend this castle, because we don't know if the French are coming to help them. You don't know if if they're doing this for nothing, but they are doing this to. They're doing this because they know it's what's right. And also, you have the story of Guy the Squire, which actually in some ways becomes important. We'll talk about that tomorrow. We'll get there tomorrow. But you do really want to follow the story of Guy, because again, he's kind of like our eyes and ears on the ground for what's going on. But yeah, if you can get your hands on Ironclad, it's a little bit of a slow burn. And again, there's not a lot of locations or anything. Once they get to the castle, that's where we're at the majority of the time. But yeah, I love Ironclad. It's one of my favorite medieval movies. And if you can check it out, definitely do so. See you later.